Hey YouTubers, it's your buddy Platt here, and today I'm going to show you how to start homebrewing beer with beer kits like Mr. Beer. So let's go! I have people ask me all the time about getting into homebrewing, and the best piece of advice I can give them is start with homebrew kits. That's why this is the first of a series of videos I'm doing reviewing some of the top homebrew kits out there. Now, homebrew kits can be simple, one or two ingredients, all the way to the advanced with the use of multiple hop additions and specialty grains. Now, the kit I started off with years ago was Mr. Beer. Mr. Beer is great. Simple, easy to follow instructions, and the kits come with everything you need. From the hop malt extract, to the sanitizer, the plastic fermenter, to the plastic reusable bottles that you'll use to bottle your home brew. Now, if you've seen some of the old Mr. Beer kits or have researched some of the new ones, you notice there's been some changes over the years. One of the changes is the airlocks used to go on top. Now they have vented lids, no use of an airlock. Also, older Mr. Beers, besides the hop malt extract, came with a booster pack. Now, everything's all in the can. And this change has come about a few years ago when Coopers of Australia, their big home brewing supply company, merged with Mr. Beer. And the company's slowly changed the look and use of Mr. Beer. But don't worry, the basic process of Mr. Beer is still the same. In future episodes, I'll review a Cooper's beer kit, and you can kind of see the similarities. Well, now that I've reviewed Mr. Beer, let's get started into brewing. Mr. Beer supplies you with most everything you need to brew your beer, but there are a few items you're going to have to supply. One is a 3-quart or larger pot to boil your water and liquid malt extract. Next is your water. Tap water is good for most of these home brew kits, but if you have too hard or too soft water, I suggest you belly up an extra buck or two and buy some distilled or purified water. Next, you want to have a spoon or a spatula to help get the malt extract out of the can and also stir completely. You, of course, need a can opener for the can. And last but not least, I suggest you have 1 or 2 plastic pans like this. One to put all your utensils in and to sanitize. The other to put hot water in and to let your can of malt extract set. Makes it easier for it to come out and not be so thick and gooey. Well, now that we've got everything we need to brew, let's brew. When you get into home brewing, the first thing you'll always want to do, either with a kit or otherwise, is to sanitize first. Now, if you want to get more into sanitization, check out my home brewing sanitization video. It goes into greater detail. As far as Mr. Beer goes, it's fairly simple. We take our pack of non-rinse cleaner, we put in 4 quarts into our fermentation tank, and then put about half the pack of the sanitizer in there. Now, keep this sanitizer because you'll use it for when you want to sanitize your bottles when it comes bottling time. So now we've got the 4 quarts in there. We'll take our lid, we'll screw it on, and we'll give this a good shake to mix in the sanitizer to get everything in there sanitized. Now, if you get a little leak up top, that's fine. That's from the vented lid. And remember, it's sanitizer. It's not going to hurt you. So we'll give her a good swirl. Pour a little bit through the spout into our pan. Get that sanitizer through the spout. And then we'll dump the rest out into our plastic pan, where we have our bottle opener, spoons, any measuring spoons, anything that may touch our beer, we'll throw into there, which includes the can of malt extract. Well, now that we got everything sanitized, let's get to the next step. Before we get going, I want to give you a quick warning. Please, 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 please follow all the instructions given to the T. There's 2 reasons for this. One is you're new at home brewing and don't know enough to go freelancing just yet. And 2, you want to get into a rhythm or a routine. And those guidelines that you use to make something as simple as Mr. Beer will also follow you into the other brews you do. Next up on this project is, we'll take our can of hopped malt extract, take the lid off, and inside you'll see a yeast packet. And that's our dried yeast that we'll use to ferment later on. Now we take our can of hopped malt extract, we'll turn her upside down, and we'll stick her in hot water. The liquid inside the can is something close to a molasses and really thick. So we want to heat it up so it pours out easier when it comes time to boil. Well, we're going to let this sit for a little bit and we're going to get to our next step. Our next step is fairly easy. We're just going to take 4 quarts of water and fill into our fermenter. Now you want to make sure to throw the water into the fridge before, because you want to cool it off. We're going to later be throwing hot malt extract in here, and to counteract that we want cool water inside. Now like I pointed out earlier, you can use tap water, but if your water's not so good, pony up and get you some spring water. Well, we got 4 quarts in there. Now let's get to the next part. Well, all right, I've taken 4 cups of water, thrown in my pan, and we're heating it to a boil. Now we got it ready to boil. I've taken my can of malt extract out of the warm water and I've opened her. We're gonna make sure we get everything off the top of the lid. As you can tell, this stuff is nice, thick, and gooey. And we're going to cut off the heat. And we're going to add our malt extract. Oh, look how thick and gooey that is. We're going to stir her in nice and slow. Now, if you're doing this and you don't get the extract heated enough, I encourage you to maybe use a spatula so you get every last bit of goodness out of the can. There we go. And let's get this out. Now, I failed to mention earlier in the video, but it's kind of an important point. We're using the Mr. Beer Oktoberfest malt extract. So we're going to make a nice, dark, German-style lager. I'm going to take some of the hot water and put it in the can here. Be careful. Wash out a little bit of that last bit of extract. Alright, well I'm going to stir this for a little bit longer. And after it's all stirred in, we'll go to our next step. Well, alright, now that we've got the malt extract into our 4 cups of boiling water, it's time to throw it into our fermenter. Now we've got 4 quarts of cool water already in the fermenter. And a little trick that I use to make it a little easier is to take my fermenter and stick it to the sink. And now I've got my heated malt extract. And this stuff is really sticky, so in case I have an accident, I like to do this over the sink. So I'm going to pour our heated extract into the fermenter. And don't worry if you spill a little, it'll be alright. And we're going to pour this in. Alright. Good to the last drop. And because we spilled a little, we saved it all in the sink, saved you a lot of cleanup. Well, now I'm going to take another bottle of cooled water, and we are right now about 6 liters in our fermenter. So I'm going to take the chilled water and we'll fill up our fermenter to about 8.5 liters. Now, between the cool water we just added and the cold water we put in previously, this should chill our heated extract to a proper fermentation temperature, which is for Mr. Beer roughly the mid-60s to the mid-70s. Well, now that we got that done, we're going to go to our final step. Well, alright, we have our fermenter filled, and one last thing we need to do is give everything a good stir. A, we want to make sure everything's mixed up right, and B, when we stir, it adds oxygen into the beer, or at this point, it's called a wort, and that gives our yeast a little helping hand. Alright, now we got it stirred up. We'll just snip open the yeast packet and we'll just sprinkle her in. And make sure she all gets in there. The full pack for a full batch. And then we just add our lid. Now from this point, we're going to let her sit for at least 7 days, but I advise you going for 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, then we'll bottle. Again, follow Mr. Beer's bottling instructions, especially if you have the bottles they give you. Now, if you're using beer bottles of your own that you saved, I'd advise you checking out my homebrew bottling tips video to help you work through that process. So let's review what we did, basically. We basically took 1 can of Mr. Beer Oktoberfest liquid hopped malt extract, added a little bit of water, threw in our yeast. And with that, we're going to produce roughly 2 gallons of Oktoberfest beer that comes out to around 3.7% alcohol. Now, I know what you're saying. 3.7%, that didn't seem like a lot. Well, in future videos, besides on how to use brew kits, I'll show you how to enhance brew kits by kicking up the amount of alcohol, but also kicking up the maltiness and the hoppiness of the beers. But for now, we have 2 gallons brewing of Oktoberfest that should be ready in roughly a month. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe down below. Until next time, bye-bye.